G'day cocktail lovers, I hope you've been keeping well. I've got a cocktail for you today, slightly special to me. It's St Andrew's Day. And you may well not know this, but my name is actually Andrew and my heritage is mostly Scottish. So the Scots celebrate the patron saint's day on the 30th of November, St Andrew's Day. And so, of course, I need to have something with a Scottish element. And what's more Scottish than Scotch, of course. And I spent a bit of time looking up variety of recipes. A Scottish friend actually suggested, there's a Highland margarita, which is basically a margarita that has drambuie, which is a Scotch-based liqueur. And there are, of course, an enormous number of recipes that have Scotch in them. The one that really caught my eye, and the one I'm going to make, is a riff on the New Orleans classic, the Sazerac. This is a Highland Sazerac. First up, this calls for a rinse in your glass. Either absinthe or green chartreuse, something like that. And if you're not familiar with talking about having a rinse in the glass, what that is normally they say, okay, put a bit of this particular spirit or liqueur in there, usually between 5 and 15 mils, so less than half an ounce in other words. And then they go like swirl it around so it kind of sticks to the glass and then tip it out. I'm going, okay, absinthe is my most expensive spirit. I'm not going to throw it out, not even a little bit, okay? But I saw on one of the sites I was looking through a really good suggestion of what to do with the absinthe rather than throw it out. And yeah, it is basically drink it. But also the recommendation for this recipe was put ice in your glass that you're going to serve in to start chilling the glass and pour your absinthe over that. So I'm going to do a bit less than half an ounce, like around 10 mils of absinthe, and got my glass with a nice big bit of ice in it, and I'm going to just pour the absinthe over that. And I'm going to leave that sit while I mix the cocktail. And before I pour the cocktail in, I'm going to pour the absinthe out into a shot glass, and that'll be my chaser for the cocktail. First up for the Sazerac, even the Highland Sazerac, is some cognac. Now, it's because down in New Orleans there's the French influence, so it is traditional to use cognac. You could use any brandy, really, a good brandy. I happen to have some VSOP cognac, so I'm going to put in 1.5 ounces, 45 mils of cognac. Now we come to the Highland part. A Sazerac, some people make it with whiskey, some make it with cognac, some make it with a mix. This one's going to be a mix, but instead of American bourbon or rye, it's going to be some Scotch. And see, I hardly ever drink Scotch, but there are recipes that say put a little bit of Scotch in this, and it's not the same if you don't have a Scotch, and sometimes you want a really smoky one. And I thought, am I going to buy a whole bottle of quite expensive Scotch just to occasionally put a few mils in? And I thought, hey, look, they have little gift packs, which are way cheaper, and there are varieties in there. So I've got this little Johnny Walker gift pack, and please, I don't want any Scotch snobs to pick on me for having Johnny Walker. This has quite a mix of their higher end stuff. For this cocktail, I'm going to use their Gold Label Reserve because that's the one out of these that they actually recommend for cocktails. There's a couple of quite smoky ones, so if I ever make one that calls for an Islay Scotch, I'm going to use one of those. And yes, I know Johnny Walker's not an Islay Scotch, but they have some quite smoky ones, so it'll do for me. But in this case, I'm going to put in 15 mils, half an ounce of the Johnny Walker, but the Scotch of your choice, really. Now I'm going to put just a little sugar syrup in here. You might like to actually use sugar. Some people like to use sugar or a sugar cube when they make a Sazerac. I'm going to put, the recommendation is about 1/4 ounce, and a bar spoon holds about 5 mils, 1/4 ounce is about 7.5 mils. So I'm going to give a generous bar spoon of sugar syrup going in my Sazerac. The final touch is some bitters, and this recipe calls for a mix of bitters. Often with the New Orleans cocktails, you'll get call for Creole bitters like Peychaud's, which is probably the second most famous type of bitters after Angostura. This recipe says we're going to do 3 dashes of Peychaud's, and we're going to follow that with 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. This is a stirred cocktail, so we add ice to our mixing glass. I'm going to stir that down. You want to give it a pretty serious stirring because it's a very boozy cocktail. Good 30 seconds worth of stirring. Don't even know if you can hear me over the noise of the ice. We're going to stir this down for about 30 seconds. Stirring's all done, so I'm going to not throw out my absinthe, which has also got a bit of melted ice in it, so it's lushed. If you're ever not familiar with absinthe, if you add water or virtually anything else to it, it will go quite cloudy. It's usually a fairly clear spirit, and you add water, it will go cloudy. That's called lushing. That's part of its charm. So we've strained that out. I don't have a strainer. I have to grab my Hawthorn strainer. And he's back with the Hawthorn strainer. So now I'm going to strain this into our pre-chilled and rinsed glass. There we go. Put that down. And it's a very nice colour. Kind of showing off my clear ice, which I make just by using an insulated coffee cup to freeze the water in, and it does directional freezing. I might do a full explainer video of that one day. Got the idea from Uncle Pete. So here we have, this is the Highland Sazerac, which I've never actually had before, so I'm quite interested in how this tastes. Ooh, yeah, that's good. If you like a boozy cocktail, I tell you what, a Sazerac's a good one. And it's interesting with the Scotch in there. Scotch, even a non-Islay Scotch, a lighter smoked Scotch, is noticeably smoky compared to a bourbon or a rye. So it's got its own character. It's gone very well with the cognac, and just that little rinse of absinthe is doing it quite a treat, actually. This is a very nicely balanced drink. There's a reason it's a classic. It's been around for such a long time. Honestly, I'd probably experiment with this later and do a more even split. It's like 1.5 ounces of cognac and half an ounce of Scotch. I think I'd be up for playing a bit with increasing the Scotch and bringing down the cognac. Not necessarily to equal parts, but at least a bit closer. Because the Scotch certainly isn't overpowering this. That is a good boozy sipper. I definitely recommend a Highland Sazerac if you've never tried one, or even just a regular Sazerac if you like boozy cocktails and haven't tried one. It is one that I particularly like, and maybe you will too. So I'd love to hear if you've experimented with, because you can experiment quite a bit with a Sazerac if you have your own particular way of doing it. Are you whiskey favoured? Are you more cognac? Or do you like a split like this one? The world's yours. And I'd love to hear from you. And hey, also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, it would be great if you did subscribe. Come back, hit the little notification bell so you know when I upload the next video. And we'll be doing much, much more in the world of cocktails, trying to distract ourselves and have a good time while the world around us is just getting increasingly strange day by day, quite honestly. So that's it for now, but I will say I hope I see you again soon, and cheers. And now for the chaser. Woo! That's the stuff!